Russ?
Yes.
Yeah. We are now live streaming, so you can make me a co-host.
All right.
So I could moderate the chat. Um,
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Let's just wait for the learners then. Okay.
Do you have a way of manually letting people in?
I think they would be because once they see your class was already ready to come in the website, the website would automatically let them in.
Okay.
Given the fact that the security is turned off. So yeah.
The hosts that are going to talk tonight are on already. They're in the waiting room. But I told them we'd be letting them in here in a minute. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're coming in now.
hi there, Nancy and Carolyn. Good to see you again,
Hi.
Carolyn. Did they get you up?
Yeah, I got up. I walked a little bit. I'm on a nerve block, so I have no pain
Yet.
yet. But when it wears off, I'll have pain.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. Well,
But
I think
this is the first day, and so I'm sitting up. So I think I'm doing fine.
very good. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Cindy and Linda and Jane and Joyce and Nancy, Mary, Susan, Raymond, Carol, Sue, Jeannie, Virginia, and Frank and Joanne. Welcome. I believe you pronounce your last name Kohler. I bet that origin of that name is German. No? You're muted.
Slovak and Ukrainian.
Slovak and Ukrainian. Okay. Just didn't go far enough east. The K is what got me thinking about it. Welcome, Petra and Gina and Margaret and
Hello.
Ellen and Rose.
Big class.
She said 30.
Melinda, welcome.
Thank you. I might have to hide my video because I've got a little wine and cheese here. So.
Oh, well,
Enjoy it.
sometimes we'll have to have a wine and cheese evening here.
I want some.
I haven't. Here's to you. But,
the problem with the virtual background is it's very hard to see things by your face.
Well, you know, the problem, it's my house, but I got so tired of like the lighting or having to sit someplace where you weren't seeing the ceiling. And it's just like, okay, it's like, anyway. So I'm looking forward to this. I might have to leave early because I was signed up for an 8 o'clock class, but I might end up kind of being late to the other class too. So
that's fine. And Frank and Joanne, while we're waiting for people to come, I have one more question for you. Would you like me to show your video of the kids dancing and drumming, or drumming, not dancing, at the very beginning?
At the end.
At the end. Very good. We'll do that at the end. I've got it set. Hi, Salwa. Nice to see you again. So many familiar faces. And hi, Larry.
I want to know when Carolyn's going to be up dancing.
I'm going to try tomorrow.
She's ready, I think. She She says there's
don't
no
encourage that.
no
Please don't
pain.
encourage her. Please don't encourage her.
Yeah.
We need to point that camera down so we can see that pretty face of hers.
And my hair's all braided up on the top.
You're the best looking patient I've ever seen.
Carolyn had a knee replacement, so
Carolyn.
she's recovering. But look at this. She came to her Get Set Up class, which I think is great.
Awesome.
Wonderful to welcome everyone this evening. Oh, we got 33 people. That's great.
Wow.
We'll give it one more minute. We've got our guests, Frank and Joanne Kohler, here to tell us all about Cuba, which is great. And if anyone else here is interested in sharing about a travel experience, get a hold of me. I'll put my Get Set Up email in the notes at the end of today's class. So you can get a hold of me because we have 3, 4, maybe 5 more learners all got trips. There might be 6.
Oh,
I think I've got us booked into June, well into June.
It's great.
So we've got all sorts of travel destinations around the world to learn about. This is wonderful. This is kind of something we're dreaming about, is that people would then come and share about their travel experiences. And we've got Lester here as our TA. So if anybody has questions or problems, reach out in the chat to Lester. And if you've got technical issues, other than not being able to type in the chat, you can put that question in the chat to him. If you can't find the chat, you can't chat, you can't put the question in the chat to him. That won't work. But we have a great crew of TAs and tech supports that Get Set Up. They're real wonderful help. We appreciate them all.
Yeah.
And we'll give about one. Wow, you got 36 people, Frank and Joanne. That's great. This is super. That almost everybody that signed up has joined. That means that's really good. That's outstanding attendance.
Good.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. And then I'm going to turn it over to Frank and Joanne. And they're going to take us on a trip through Cuba. I request tonight that you put your questions to Frank and Joanne in the chat. And if Frank and Joanne see me do this, that means I got a question that's very timely. A lot of questions can wait to the end, but if it's like they just showed something and they're like, wait a minute, we want to see what a question, well, I'll give a little timeout and, or I'll maybe break in for a second if I have to, but please put your questions in the chat. It's a great way to gather questions. So, Destination Cuba with Frank and Joanne Kohler, and that is actually them in Cuba, and Joanne will be explaining about that flower on her cheek. I'm your guide, Russ Eanes. I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia, and those of you that have been in classes with me already today know this shtick. I'm a writer, a walker, and a cyclist, and I formerly was a book publisher, and I now am working full-time as a guide at Get Set Up. When I was a publisher, I loved to help authors shape their ideas into a book. That was the most fun part of my job. Now working full-time with Get Set Up, I love working with older learners. You guys have lots of wisdom, and I get lots of energy from working with you. Get Set Up helps you learn useful skills from people like you so you can do wonderful things. And we learn from each other. Tonight, we're learning from Frank and Joanne. That's what it's all about. That's why I love this travel series we're doing. Ideally, we can see you and your cameras are on. Anyone can request a recording of this class. Afterward, you email help@getsetup.io. And if anyone is joining by live streaming, and we are live streaming tonight, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class. And lastly, Get Set Up is not paid to promote specific products. So now I'm going to let Frank and Joanne share about their trip to Cuba But first, a little introduction to Frank and Joanne. They are very seasoned travelers, and they have a great traveling philosophy. They said that they started traveling in the 90s after a close friend died 3 days after he retired. I know that story, not personally, but I know some people like that. In the early days, they said that they rented cars, but then when they got to the town center, they like to get to the train. They found it hard to find a place to park the car. I know that story too. They do a lot of their own travel planning, but they've also used tour companies, especially when the country is difficult to move about. For example, in Egypt, Morocco, China, India, Dubai, you've been around. Those are great places you've been. Man, they like to travel light, and they were introduced to Rick Steves and his concept of light travel. They have a couple of Rick Steves backpacks. They're 25 years old and still going strong. Good for you. And here's how they work together. At night, Joanne pores over the various guidebooks or Rick Steves and plans the next day. And if it's buses or trains, Frank figures that out. They're not afraid to use hostels. If they really want to see the country, they have stayed in some hostels, and Joanne gets the upper bunk in co-ed dormitories. Wow. They never eat in fast food. Good philosophy, unless you have to use the Wi-Fi. And they often ask a local, where do you want to eat and drink? Where do you go? Excellent advice. They prefer to travel off-season in April, October, and they always carry a roll of toilet paper. I have some stories about that I won't share tonight. Museums are always in part of their plans. Good idea. They like automobile museums, gardens, cemeteries. At any museum in town, it's very informative. And sometimes they just get on a public bus and ride its whole route. And I can tell you a story about a cemetery, getting locked in a cemetery late one night. That was fun. They like to take in theater shows, orchestra, even a bullfight. They're up for a camel ride. I guess you haven't done the camel ride yet?
We have.
You have done the camel ride. Okay. They've taken about every available form of transportation you can imagine. They like to take a church or two per town, a mosque or a synagogue, and that will tell you a lot about the country, so they say. And I like this idea. A block of cheese and a loaf of bread is always a good lunch. Yep. Pretty simple. Way to go, Light. I like this from Frank. He likes to keep his camera photos under 800. Unfortunately, now Joanne takes her iPhone along. I guess that means there's a lot more than 800 photos. They don't bring home gifts or trinkets unless it's like salt from the Dead Sea. I bring home rocks. And Joanne's philosophy is that we're all like jelly beans. We're different on the outside, but same on the inside. And Frank's philosophy is we're all going to die anyway. So I guess that you better get out and travel that world before that happens. Without any more ado, I am going to share my screen, and hopefully now, Frank, you can share your screen, and I'll turn it over to you too. And you can do any more introduction to yourself. Tell us about the travel company you took and why you went, and then go for it.
Okay.
Joanne, before I start that, just about ourselves, the smart.
The travel tour we took to Cuba was called Smart Tours, SMARTOURS. And they provided a very nice travel experience for us. And I think the pictures will show you some of the things that we were able to see. Of course, Cuba is an island, one of the largest islands. This is the Cuban flag, which is quite interesting. If you recognize the star, you might be from Texas, and it lights the way to freedom. The triangle really represents liberty, equality, and fraternity. And the red that the star is placed upon represents the bloodshed for independence. One of the first things we did is we went to a local privately owned restaurant. We tried to do that when we were there. This one particularly had a beautiful garden all the way around it. And there was actually a lot of botanical nomenclature that was identified there. And we had a young girl who gave us the guide through there. They gave us a nice little tour. There were birds in cages, and you'll see that quite a bit everywhere as you go along. And it was interesting in that the people who owned the restaurant provided an opportunity for the senior citizens of the area to come in, play dominoes, watch television. Many of the women were doing arts and crafts, which they would then sell and make a little bit more of an income for themselves. This was our hospitality place where we stayed. It was another private residence. And as you can see, you really need to travel light when you're going always up those steps. The people were homeowners. This was their living room, and you were living with the people when you were there. So it's like you're learning and enjoying the locals. Many of them don't speak any English, so either know a little bit of Spanish or do a lot of sign languages, which what we often did. And so it's mi casa, you casa. It helps to support their community, and it's also a lot less expensive than the hotels. They often offer breakfast, but you can see it's very, very rudimentary a kind of accommodations. This was, Frank, who was this gentleman?
He was our landlord, and I've forgotten his name. Please tell me, dear.
It was Roberto.
Roberto got up every morning, and he obviously had a full-time job somewhere because he had a pair of boots on and he was gone after he set the breakfast up for us. So I suspect a lot of homeowners let their place out, but still have full-time jobs.
But notice the fruit that is on the table. It was everything was delicious, and they had a lot of wonderful fresh juices. Now, Roberto does have to pay a tax to the government, and he did collect our passports, and they were all documented. So this is a perfectly legal way to see anything in Cuba or to stay at a place in Cuba. We had to pay cash. And there are 3 different currencies that you can use: USD, US dollars in some instances, the CUP or the CUC, and most tourists use the CUC, which is a particular way of exchanging money.
A point of interest is that the average income per a month is $25. So you can see why a lot of people do rent their facilities out.
And
Anyway,
question, how much did you spend for your lodging?
It was included in the price of the
tour.
trip, so I don't know exactly what it was, but we did tip very generously everywhere we went. Cuba has a very minimal economy because of the embargo. So we left whatever we could in any place that we went.
We literally took everything that we weren't wearing and we gave them to different people as we saw. And I didn't see anybody, offended by that, especially with my wife's clothing, etc. But here we go. We're out to visit Mr. Hemingway's place.
And this was called Lookout Farm, and it's a little way out of Cuba. It's about 15 acres, and Hemingway was a very important part of the Cuban experience. One of the things that we noticed was all the different types of architecture that you see around here. And this one is kind of the Spanish colonial style. You walk up, and on the inside, it's all tiled floors, high ceilings. And Hemingway went on lots of safaris, so you see a lot of the animals that he procured along the way. We were not allowed to go into the house, but this young lady graciously took our cameras and took photographs of the house. They lived a very unpretentious lifestyle there.
I did slip her a couple of American dollars, so I felt appreciative of what she had done for us, but she didn't do it for everybody. This is Hemingway's boat, and my wife said he was an avid fisherman and that it is normally in the water, but now since it's part of this museum, they have it up in a blocked situation.
It was being restored. There were 4 very important plazas that we went to see.
Hey, Joanne, can I ask one question real quick?
Sure. Mhm.
Why is it they don't let people into Hemingway's house? Do you know?
I'm not sure why they don't. It is, I believe it's now state owned, but it might be because there are so many people. They do not, and I think that's been a policy for quite a long time.
I would suspect that if She was probably the only person in that building. So that would have meant like museums where they have 5 or 6 people in 5 or 6 rooms. That's just a supposition after the question you asked.
I think there were a few, I think there were like 2 guys in there, but I don't know the reason. But it's all open, so you can see everything on the inside, and it was all on the one floor. It was just, and there was a huge tower along the side too. Good question. I don't know the answer to that. There were 4 plazas, they're very important plazas. And this one was very close to the harbor, and it's where the Spanish ships used to come in to trade. Of course, there was a lot of trade with Cuba and Spain. The particular basilica that you're looking at is now used as a concert hall, and the tower off to the right was the tallest point in Havana up to one point. And all the places are cobblestones.
These 2, a lady and a gentleman. The lady is, as I said, Texan, who was our point person or our guide from Smart Tours. The gentleman on the left, not the one in the middle. The gentleman on the left was a former school teacher, and he just couldn't make life, enough money. So he took up guiding, and he was excellent, and it does pay so much better. I do not know who the statue is, but you can see he's normally dark in color, but you can see how many people rub his beard and rub his shoulders, and I can only suspect that's for good luck.
So here's one question for you. Since the church is now a concert hall, do they allow religious services in Cuba?
No, there haven't been religious services for over 100 years. The English took over it at one time, and they had Anglican services in there, so they deconsecrated it.
Okay. And in other places they allow it?
Other facilities,
yes.
churches, and
Yeah.
yes, we'll speak to that later.
Okay,
A little
great.
bit of street performer, and yes, that dog is real. And, of course, he'll chase you down until you at least give him a coin or 2. These young ladies, if I'm not mistaken, were Canadian gals that we struck up a conversation with, and she was there. They were both looking at that, and they were looking in and looking in, and I said, "It's a post office box." And they started to laugh at me. And so one of them did that, and I just thought it was too precious. I had to get that picture.
This is another square, Plaza Baya. And there's modern sculptures in there, but notice the balconies along top. Just go through more. And you can see this was a square where they would observe bullfights and processions. People would sit on their balconies. The wealthy people would sit on their balconies and enjoy that. And notice the pastel shades of many of the buildings, just lovely pastel shades. In these areas, it's very bright and, very well painted. Other areas, not so well painted. Beautiful, on the yellow building with the arches, they are stained glass windows, which are lovely. And this was the original stock exchange at one time. This actually belonged to the first plaza.
General foot traffic, you won't see many tourists there. I might take a minute just to tell everybody that when we were able to go, there were like 20 of us in this group. And one of the first things we were told was that this was like a people-to-people tour where we would get to stay with them and talk to them. But we were asked to maintain a book for 5 years with everybody we talked to and everything they said. This was our government, not the Cuban government. So it was an unusual circumstance, but all of the people we saw and everyone was just wide open. And of course, we know not to talk politics, but we did in fact walk in and looked in a couple of doors and windows at people's homes.
So here's a quick question. You went in, was it October, November 2019?
October
19.
2019.
And by then the U.S. had prohibited, the government had prohibited travel to Cuba. So this was like an exception because it was a people-to-people
Well,
exchange.
it wasn't really people to people. They had stopped the people to people group. So the way we traveled was we were going in support of the Cuban people. So people to people is no longer viable. And I don't know if that's with our government or their government, but it's no longer a category to visit. So our visa and our document said that we were going in support of the Cuban people. That's
And
how
the
we
U.S.
got
government allowed that.
Yes,
They did. We were grandfathered in.
we actually paid probably before
Right
what
bef-
you said happened.
Yeah, so it was
Gotcha.
like right on that cusp. And about that time was also when they started the embargo of the ships coming into Cuba. No American ships were allowed to go into there at that point. So that was all part of that embargo.
This next slide is interesting in that, oh, well, I guess it's just a bunch of bricks in front of a building, but they are bricks of wood, made of wood. And Joanne will tell you why. She's got the best explanation.
This particular plaza was Plaza de Arms, which was the military area in the 1700s. And the big pillars that you see, the columns right behind on the right-hand side, they stand in front of an enormous building, which was called the Palace of the Captain Generals. And there were anywhere from 50 to 60 generals who lived and had their offices in that facility. But to keep down the sounds of the horses so they could concentrate on their duties, they installed these wooden streets all over the place because you'd hear the clip clop of the horses. Now there's the cobblestone along there, but this square is beautiful. There are royal palms all over. It's just beautiful. This whole building is now a city museum.
A lot of murals, and as we go around, very little graffiti, as in the ugliness. A lot of what we will show you along are absolutely gorgeous, and obviously have taken some very talented people. As you look here, I cannot tell you, but I think there's only 2 Americans all the way down at the end of this road. We were not accosted. Nothing was said to us. A matter of fact, they just didn't even pay any attention to us as we went around, including when we went to eat. They didn't say, sometimes when we're in a country, someone will say, oh, you're from the US or you're a Canadian, but not in Cuba. They are just go about their business. They go about their lives.
Frank said there's no graffiti. Well, this isn't graffiti, but there are a lot of artworks along all the different walls. And this was very captivating, I thought.
Yeah, I don't call it graffiti. I call it gorgeous.
The cathedral, which is really beautiful. This was in Cathedral Square. And this is the most photographed building, I think, in all of the squares. You can see the Spanish Baroque influence along the top. It's actually made from coral. It was coral? Yeah, coral that was gotten from the Gulf of Mexico. And the 3 popes have been there recently: Pope Benedict, Pope John Paul, and Pope Francis. There is some graffiti, right?
I apologize. These 2 folks dressed that very nattily would be glad to take you on a tour, and for some American dollars. I find them both very charming. Transportation, as we say it, everything you can imagine, and we'll get to the cars sooner or later. Joanne?
People in Cuba are rationed. They have ration books, and they are very accustomed to bartering. About 70 to 80% of food is imported. The embargo has struck them very, very hard. So they have ration books and they can use them to supplement their income. But they have really been devastated by the embargo, which has lasted for so many years. It's unbelievable, but they are so creative in the way they are able to adapt and to exchange and to just to be able to adapt to the really devastating circumstances that are there now.
One of the wonderful tours we took there was of this facility, And the gentleman who was the barber or the hairdresser was still working, still teaching, but started to collect a lot of these accoutrements. Joanne?
His name is Pepito, and he is the most popular and a well-renowned hairdresser in Cuba. And he started to invite young men, young women who had no jobs to train there. So people come in, they sit in these 100-year-old chairs, and they get their hair cut. And he actually had a conversation with President Obama. And President Obama was talking about entrepreneurship in the United States. And this Pepito was talking about entrepreneurship in Cuba. And one of his quotes was really interesting. And he said, "I can't be a millionaire in my business while watching those around me unable to cover their basic needs. Ever since I started my salon, I dreamt of creating a cultural project which would transcend my business."
I
So
point out
he's really teaching other people who are going to be able to be to do more than maybe he's even doing, and even be able to surpass him. And his whole philosophy, then he started to talk to one of the very important historians in Cuba, whose name was Leo, and where his business was located was on the most devastating, rough street in Cuba. And he went under a project with this Mr. Leo to change the street. And what happened is within 6 years, the complete street was changed, and all kinds of people started up their little businesses. So everywhere you see, and they call it the cutting art. And there you can see the scissors looking out into the sea. But the whole alley is just completely overturned, and new businesses are coming. So, and inviting tourists to come along, and so creative. Everything in there is just, they just ooze creativity with the little that they have, which is absolutely amazing. They just blow my mind. They really do.
Very eclectic restaurant. And that's where I learned to make the mojitos that we're enjoying this evening.
There's a mojito.
Cheers to all of you.
The drink of Cuba.
And
Or
what's
art.
in that drink?
Pardon me?
What's in that drink?
Oh, the drink is wonderful. It's you take they have a special mint that they grow there, but I found a mint that was close to it here in the United States. And you take about 10 to 12 leaves of mint and you muddle it. And then you take some lime and you muddle the lime on top of the leaves. Then you take some sugar and muddle the sugar along there. And then you take seltzer water and then rum. Mix it all together and enjoy it. It's delicious, especially on a hot summer day.
It's getting me through my nervousness in doing this.
You're doing a great job.
This is one of the little shops that opened along the way. And I just thought it was so cute and so delightful.
And they are dollar bills from Americans and every other country that people would visit. Guess what? Look right there in the center, Phoenixville, PA, USA. Joanne Kohler today is she wouldn't say how many years, but was her birthday. They did have a cake for us. And here's Viva la Revolution. Dinner, outstanding. We think that was pork.
It was pork.
Everything is meager, but beautifully done. Tablecloths, white cloths everywhere, clean silverware, outstanding. This is El Morro Fortress, built in 1630. It's one of the more modern buildings. They were scattered throughout Havana. Like we have a Wall Street or something in this country, there'd be much production. They were just scattered throughout. We did not know, there were no signs on there as to what that building was. I can assume a hotel. Joanne?
This gentleman is Mr. Fuster, and he is a very well-renowned artist throughout the world. He actually studied at the academy, and if you take a look at him, he might remind you of a Gaudi. If you've been to Spain, you might see some of Gaudi's works. But he takes shards of reclaimed material. So everything that you see here is reclaimed material. and some things probably pottery and things like that. He breaks it up and he puts it into these wonderful collections. There's 3 stories of this artwork, and it's just incredible. Now, this is a little fishing village about 20 minutes outside of Havana, old Havana. And again, he started this project, and now there are about 80 neighbors in the neighborhood that are allowing him to continue his work and bring it into their homes, on the outside of their homes, and decorate the outside of their homes. And then their entrepreneurial spirit has just blossomed. So they have all started these little niche areas where they can sell objects to tourists or to other places. And again, with the tourist trade just dropping out, the bottom dropping out, they've really been under the gun.
This is the next door neighbor to the buildings that we just saw. And of course, Viva Cuba, that is just so exciting. And I suspect that if and when some of us go back there in a couple of years, this building will be covered with, that art.
So quick question, are those water tanks on that building?
Uh,
I think they are. Yeah, I think they are.
uh,
Oh, I don't know.
that
I
is
should
hard
look
to
up-
say.
I don't
I
know.
think they're stacks. I just,
Ah,
no. You're probably right. And what it is the tank is up on top and there's a support, a triangle underneath it if you come through clear enough. So yeah, likely they were the water tanks for storage for the apartments down below. Good eye, Russ. We'll see a little more about these youngsters later. I'll just let you now know that many of these programs are not government and they are not from a school district, but parents and people who just want their children to have the best. And in this particular case, children of all ilk are coming to this facility. And some of them after school get on a bus and ride for a half an hour to come to this class. We'll see them later, we hope. Here's the gentleman, Joanne, his name is?
His name is Carlos Tim Cremata. And he started this class in around 1990s. And these children are all after school. They are come from all over. Many of them are underprivileged. Anyone is welcome in this school. They don't have to audition for anything. Some of the programs they present are bilingual. Parents help out with all the costumes, with the set designs and everything. And it's for all the kids. They're from 3 to 14 years of age. It includes a lot of children with motor, visual, and hearing disabilities, Down syndrome, mental problems, cerebral palsy. So he's working a lot with socially disadvantaged boys and girls. They've had 3 international tours so far with this group, one in Spain, one in Japan, and one in Venezuela. And they were the first theatrical group in the world to be proclaimed ambassadors of goodwill by UNICEF. So they really do a bang up job. And the children are they are so vibrant and so funny and so cute. You just want to take them all and hold them.
And somehow they found out that it was my wife's birthday. So if you want to hear a bunch of screaming, happy, joyous kids singing happy birthday, and they all got up and ran and surrounded around her and kind of danced around her, it was worth whatever we paid for the whole trip.
Now, again, in that particular area, whenever we went to one of these privately run groupings, we definitely tipped. We gave as much as we possibly could because it really helped to support what they're doing. As I said, Cuba is under the gun. I cannot believe they are able to survive with all the hardships that they have to go through. It just broke my heart, it really did.
The Capitol building and Joanne, the steps.
The 55 steps up to the top, and you can see the Doric columns up along there. And the dome was fashioned or influenced by the Pantheon in Paris. Then right next to it is the theater building with a Baroque design, which is so completely different. So the elements of design and architecture in Cuba is one of the fascinating things that they are well known for. And it's mind-boggling, all the different changes that you see in the architecture. It's really great.
Okay, we finally got to the cars. Now, I bet you there's a lot of folks out there that think this is one of the primary reasons to go there, but it is fun. And it's interesting to see all these cars. A couple of them, I think I may have owned before they found their way to Cuba. But the surprising thing is if you remember, these cars were only gotten down there prior to the blockade and the embargo from the United States. So if anything breaks down, they are not able to get the parts. And some of these cars, believe it or not, have been hand painted because they can't find the facilities to take care of it. And one of the vehicles that I saw, we didn't ride in it, but I saw it, and I'm saying, that does not sound like a 6-cylinder Chevy. The guy lifted the hood. It was a Russian 4-cylinder engine that they modified somehow to hook up to a transmission, which I don't understand, and I'm a mechanic, and off they went. And this is the way they make money. There are probably in the country, probably 100 of these, and they're fascinating. And we'll have more to say about them later. This is interesting in that it's just a shot from another area, but you see the number of them. And no tourists, no Americans, no business. Look at that Ford Thunderbird. I have never seen one in the United States of that vintage with the top that proceeds into the trunk. Joanne?
Daiquiris, Hemingway's favorite drink. And this was his place of drinking when he would come into Old Havana. And inside the bar at the end, there's actually a huge bronze statue of Hemingway. So everyone likes to go in there and have a daiquiri. Art Deco, this was the Bacardi building. And again, the architecture is completely fascinating and so interesting. So this was the top of the building.
This is a building, probably was a warehouse along the wharf at one time. And now for all the Cubans that have to earn money and earn livings, will do crafts or acquire something to sell. And this is a 2-story building. So I'm saying there are probably 70 or more facilities in there. Just a piece of art, and it is about 5 stories high. We've gone out a number of times. Mostly, Joanne always kind of liked the back street bars and dives, but we went out to 1 or 2 nicely more modern facilities. And again, Joanne thinks it's chicken, right?
That was chicken.
That was chicken. Yeah. I don't know. It's just as long as it's good.
Rice and beans was one of their, what we had rice and beans in just about every meal that we ate. And they gave us such an ample quantity of food that I was feeling guilty because I knew that other people who were working here, they were not able to have that quantity of food for themselves. So towards the end of the tour, we were ordering 1 platter and splitting it between us. We just felt so, it was just.
We're going to move rapidly through this next sequence because we want to get everything in for you. Joanne?
This is the spiritual home of the Afro-Cuban culture. They're a Roman Catholic or Catholicism is big in Cuba, but so is the Santeria religion, and they kind of somehow blend together. This place is quirky, alternative. It's an urban project. It's very flamboyant when you walk in there. It's only 2 blocks long. And the name of the man who has started it is Salvador, and he is a self-taught artist. He kind of does a little bit with cubism, with abstract, with surrealism, and all these things. But his work spills out into the street. But it's incredible. Again, the reuse of things that they had. The bathtubs, I find quite interesting.
They literally are bathtubs, and in the upper left-hand corner, that semicircular item, that is from a cement mixer, and they plastered it into the wall and painted it. Here's another a series of industrial items, presses and pumps and regulators and turned into street art. We had the opportunity to get to see this church and this cemetery. And guess what, Joanne?
It's 60 blocks long.
60 blocks long.
Over 1 million people buried there.
And
It's incredible.
they're
And of course,
very-
all above ground.
all buried above ground.
We couldn't get in. We didn't have the time to go in, but we just passed it along the way. But it just went on and on and on and on.
A lot of times we take a break when we're summers in Europe and we buy a chunk of cheese and a loaf of bread. And where is it that you can really just rest and relax? And we read the names, and a lot of times they have chairs and tables so the families come and visit. We just love cemeteries. The Hotel International.
And this was built for Americans and by Americans. And there were no Cubans allowed to stay there. Now there are only Cubans who work there. But if you look at the top of it, you can see it almost looks like chess pieces. And that's because they were honoring a national chess champion whose name was Jose Capablanca. He was a world chess champion between 1921 and 1927. And chess is another important activity along with dominoes. This is eclectic on the inside, and in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s was very, very popular. All the international stars and international politicians came there. Casinos came in the 40s. Then there was prostitution and there was drugs. After Castro, the casinos were closed and there are no longer casinos. But when Castro was there, this was where his headquarters was during, what was it, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And there were tunnels built all in front. You can see the tunnels underground.
These are some of the dignitaries. Ed Sullivan, who's the dancer?
Fred Astaire.
Fred Astaire. I love him. Nat King Cole, fantastic.
And
That
this
was a
whole
long
building
time
was
ago.
in the middle of the Vedada, which is one of the wealthiest areas. And then you look over, you look over and you see the Malecon, which is a long sidewalk area that goes about 5 miles all along the river, the blue. What is it? Whatever
Blue
it is,
Lagoon.
whatever. It is.
This is a school for teenage people, musicians and dancers. And hopefully at the end of this presentation, we'll get to see what they do. But this is just a tease as to what they look like and what they do. I'm going to move along a little bit. And this is the National
Jose Marti.
Jose Marti, philosopher, poet, professor, and a Cuban national hero in 1895 when the Cubans broke away from Spain. Fidel is everywhere. That is about 12 stories high and well backlit. Now we get to the automobiles. This gentleman was one of 3 owners that came up into the plaza to take us for a ride. And as we jumped in the car, the first thing he did is he handed me a cigar just about that big, and we both lit them and we had a heck of a time. It was kind of fun, and we were getting ready to go, and my wife is getting ready to get in. And there's a couple of other cars in the area. And first thing you know, we're going down the road, and once you know, some of our people from our group were passing us and yelling at us. And my driver wasn't going to let that get away. So off we went down the road, passing our neighbors again. So it was a fun day. Into a more serious area right now, which almost has to be covered, but is too political to talk about. And that is the mercenaries that came to try to free Cuba. And this is coming up on the Bay of Pigs. And it's almost a shame to talk about this, but 1,000 of the 1,400 were captured. 1,000 of the mercenaries. These are the people who left the country when Castro came in, and 100 died. A matter of fact, 4 American officers died during that invasion, and most of it was blamed on the CIA, who was in charge of this operation. And guess what? They didn't know the water was only 3 feet deep coming into the bay, and it was covered with coral. And once you know, they ripped their boats and they had to walk across the coral to get in. And if you look at the Bay of Pigs and you look on both sides of the entrance to the area, there are swamps everywhere. These poor guys didn't have a chance. Remember, the Russians had armed the Cuban Fidel and the Cubans, and it was a bloody day. Here's the bay as it is today. It's a favorite place of scuba and snorkeling, and the corals are gorgeous. And also, I read about there are something like 40 species of sponges in this area alone. I didn't know, I knew loofah and I knew the one I have in the garage. I didn't realize there was so much involved. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Snorkeling. There is in an immediate area a museum dedicated to the soldiers of Castro and their defense of, now all the equipment is Russian, all the weapons are Russian. They actually even had tanks, but there was not one on this display. An AK-50 caliber. We're going down the road and all of a sudden our bus driver is just stopped. And I'm looking out the front window and I said, well, he's going to go around. And he said, no. And he pointed to that yellow substance on the left-hand side that has the curls in it. And I looked at it and my wife says, that's food, that's rice. And what they're doing here is they spread the rice out on the side of the highway, they dry it out, and then these men are scooping it up and putting it in bags. And the reason that people aren't driving over it is, it's just like when they put a road repair crew here in the States, one person goes, then the other person goes, and that's what that was all about. So they're very ingenious, clever people.
And they can't use fuel because fuel's at a premium. You can't get fuel, so they can't run their machinery. So they have an alternative way of taking care of things.
Everywhere you go, Fidel, a beautiful town. We spent some time there. It's like a promenade. And again, we were looking at some of the centrifugos. This is transportation, normal. Again, that's Uncle Sam in that picture being punched by Cuba. Transportation, bus stop. And they do have buses there. Only one train runs the whole length. And if you had a bus as we did, and there were 18 people in it, and there were 20 seats, you were obliged to stop, pick someone up, and take them wherever they wanted to go. I thought these were fish hatcheries. My wife says it's probably for rice. Gorgeous everywhere you go. The fruit, Joanne?
The fruit is really incredible. Everywhere you go, there's fruit, and they were giving us samples at this little stand along the way.
The common along the highway, hobbles, but like everywhere else you say, they're very clean people. This gentleman, the artist on the right-hand side, does this etching work. The guide is the one on the left. And I'm going to show you the next picture so you get an idea. He starts with a block of wood and he etches that wood. That is so lifelike. The guy was spectacular. And now comes the part my wife liked the best. And that was, this guy said, would you like a drink, Joanne?
This is a very old-fashioned drink. They don't usually serve it in bars. And I can't even say the word. It's something like chichera. But they serve it in these clay bowls. And it is rum, of course, and lime juice, and also some seltzer. And it's really delicious. Rum makes everything good.
We're off to another area for another meeting with the people. And this was a group of nationalists that were giving us the explanation of how the Cubans feel about the world, how the Cubans are doing good around the world. propaganda. We put it in our little books and we just left. This is the National Union of the Writers and Artists of Cuba. Isn't that gorgeous? We stayed there for a while. These are journalists and artists. And as my wife had said earlier to me, she says, these guys are the guys writing in the newspapers, and they have to be very careful in what they say because the government is always looking at everything they do and say. But they're very realistic about their circumstance. Of course, they have something to sell on the way out, just like every other place you go. Street food. Beautiful little, we just spent hours walking. Here's pigs coming in. They're really laughing at the poor guy trying to grab that pig and take it in. Che Guevara everywhere. African dance in Cuba is very popular. You can see they did like an hour-long show. It's part of what we were doing visiting there. Joanne?
A wonderful square. This is in Trinidad, and the square is just beautiful. And you can see again the architecture and the royal palms. I think there's like 6 million royal palms in Cuba. It's an amazing thing.
Out for dinner one night, and we're speeding along because I don't want to not.
Pork, beans, rice. Sometimes you get beans and rice together. Sometimes you get beans and rice, but beans and rice are very much a staple.
Beautiful architecture.
Highly painted things. This is Jose Marti again, and this was a square. The Thomas Theater, Thomas Terry Theater, holds I think 290 people, and it's just
being
reconditioned condition on the inside.
Santiago Hermes, my wife can talk about this gentleman.
He was an artist, and this young lady he was painting, as he was painting her body, she was dancing and almost like a fish in the sea. She was up, she was down, she was on the floor. He continued painting her, and his artwork is all around here. He was just an incredible artist, and that's how he painted my face.
And that's all I'd let him do for my wife.
Painting the face.
Hey, if you have to take a screen door to your brother-in-law's house, you just get him to come over and pick you up and take you on his motor scooter. More street art. Beautiful plaza. Everything is fantastic. Hey, look, the same thing everywhere you go.
The Moorish influence that you see in that particular slide that just went by. You can see the wonderful Moorish influence. This was right on the bay. It was beautiful.
Dinner.
The pig. This particular restaurant we went to, it was a collector's paradise because he collected all the natural art of the people of Cuba, and he was displaying it around there. It was like walking into a museum.
Sugar cane, but it's not king anymore like it was. I think Castro tried to play sugar cane down to go industrial, and industrial didn't work once the Russians left. Che Guevara's monument, quite a story. I've read a lot about him in the last week. It was quite a person, but died a horrible death.
We had to check our bags, and we could not take photographs in there at all. So it was verboten.
Another city park. They love their children. Ain't that fun? Grandma, grandpa. They don't have much to choose from, but they got a lot of what they get. And it comes from Canada, Bolivia, Argentina, and China. Little restaurant, a little upscale. Food still marvelous. Fidel everywhere. This was interesting because it was outside of a pharmacy. I can't talk at all about tobacco, but I am going to do a lot more research in the future. We did go and look at a Cuban factory, and it was 4 stories high. And most people only work there like a year or two because it's so exhausting, but they're so as precise with their cigars. A pharmacy that we toured. We went to see these lovely ladies, and they all gave us explanations about romance and fans and dating when they were kids. And they showed us some of their dances. And that's it. Russ, I hope that we were able to to satisfy, I'm gonna stop sharing. Is that okay?
Yes, please stop sharing. You did a great job. I think we should give them all an applause. Awesome
That was
job.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm nervous.
You didn't need to be nervous. You did a great job. Thank you. And we're
We have
short on time,
questions.
so I don't know if we'll get all the questions in. But it was Smart Tour, and someone asked, are they still doing those tours?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I actually sent Russ the advertisement for it, and they actually talked about one this October. Whether or not they just didn't take the website down or not, I don't know. Check on it.
I'll see if I can get that. I'll see if I can try to get that in the link. And one more question was, sounds like Gene has been there, and we've got someone else who's planning on going. It is Margaret. It was scheduled to go in April, and that didn't work. And so now she's scheduled for November 2021. I hope you get to go. Let us know.
Who's she
Margaret.
going with? Did she know who she's going with?
Who are you going with, Margaret?
Women Who Travel. It's a Condé Nast sponsored program.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
very good. And one last question. Were you restricted in where you could go? Were you always with a tour group?
No, we did have free time. We
Yeah,
did
free
have free time, and we can go wherever we went to on our free time.
And there were no monitors. There was no one. We've been to countries where somebody military-like would follow us around.
There were no monitors, and we don't know who was looking at us if they were, but I'm sure they were. I'm sure they
Yeah.
were. It's a communist country, you
Yeah.
know. It is restrictive, you know. But it was an eye-opening experience. The Cuban people were just
Marvelous.
wonderful, and they were an inspiration on how to do something with nothing. They really were.
Well, thanks again for sharing your experience. Again, I'm going to give you an applause. That was really wonderful.
Good.
I just enjoyed it. You
I
did a
hope we
super
didn't
job.
bore you with all of those slides.
great. Oh, no.
We all enjoyed it. We could have taken more. We just ran out of time. That's all that happened.
Yeah.
Super job. And if anyone else is interested, I'll give you my email. It'll be in the notes. Let me know if a trip you'd like to share about, because that's a wonderful cultural exchange between US and Cuba. Very important. So that's significant travel.
We'll be able to see the videos.
You should be able to see that in a okay, I'll do this for Frank here real quick, because he asked to show this, and I'm going to see if I
Two
can
with
get
the kids.
No, with the dancers. No.
Let's see. We're going to try to do these dancers.
Good.
Yeah, they were great.
Super.
And end up with the little kids.
Thank you. I think it's.
I think we're out of time.
Oh,
Unfortunately, that was really good, folks.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time with us.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye.
We'll
We're
say
waiting
goodbye.
to see somebody else. We hope someone else will come in and do another trip.
There are more coming. Don't you worry.
Good,
We
good.
have lots of them coming up. Thanks again so
Thanks,
much.
Rob.
We all
Thanks
got a
a
lot
lot.
out of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very informative.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.